And we're back. The library, while not humming with activity, is noticeably more busy than usual. Exams are not far away, and that's reflected in the number of students burying their noses in textbooks at the tables around us. I've been studying quite a lot in the past few days, just like them, in hopes of doing well in the exams. This also means that Hanako and I have been playing games less, so she's begun studying as well, just to fill in the time. Nevertheless, I've found myself forsaken by her on this particular day. The textbook in front of me has remained on the same page for some time. After so much reading on subjects I couldn't care less about, if not for the exams, my mind was beginning to wander. I found my eyes flicking over to where Hanako would usually be, just like on the days she wasn't in class. Her usual beanbag in the corner of the room was conspicuously occupied. It was here that we first really met. I tried to start a conversation with her, she got skittish, and eventually bolted from the room altogether. Probably you shouldn't smile about it, but it was kind of amusing in hindsight. Nowadays it's more and more difficult to imagine her doing such a thing, even with Lily gone. She's been doing well now that she's come out of her room. I want to talk with her, or at least play another game of chess. I've been tired of studying, and it's been a few days since we've really done anything together. The question of where to find Hanako isn't a particularly difficult one. If she's not in the library, chances are that she's either in the tea room or for some peace of quiet, or in the dormitory room. Deciding to check them in that order, I pick up my books and make my way out of the library. I stretch and give a loud groan as I walk down the hallway. Studying may be frustrating at times, but with the progress I feel I've made, there's also some sense of pride in getting it done. It's a good feeling. There isn't a sound to be heard from inside as I stand in front of the door to Hanako's room. I guess that isn't very indicative of whether she's inside or not, given how quiet she usually is. Still, she wasn't in the tea room. I try knocking lightly to make my presence known, but I'm surprised when I find the door unlocked and yielding at my touch. With a small creak, the door opens. It looks like my suspicions were correct. Hanako is indeed here. Did he just open the door and, like, waltz in? She's sitting at the table with an open book in front of her, but pays it no heed as she keeps looking out the window. She looks utterly oblivious to my presence. With the head thoughtfully resting on her hand, she looks calm and collected. It's a shame she can't look like this more often. Smiling a little, I walk up to the table and softly speak to her. "Good evening, Hanako." Hanako's head turns a little to see me, but she's still only half there. I put a hand on the table and lower my head to better look at her face. I'm only curious about what mood she's in. "What's up?" She gasps a little, finally acknowledging my presence in the room for the first time. Hanako's blushing really heavily. Her mouth is open just a little, as if paused mid-sentence. More strikingly, though, is what she's doing. She's looking directly at me. Her eyes are pinned to my own. From such a close distance, I can almost see my reflection in them. They don't turn away, nor move at all. They're absolutely still, just looking into mine. They're dark and give her an almost analytical air. Even when reading on subjects she has no interest in, she would appear to be wrapped in her work to a casual observer. She absorbs information very well, and even now I can feel that. I feel like I'm seeing something behind those eyes I never saw before. I don't know what it is, though. Hanako? Her lips move just a little, silently mouthing something. She looks like she's on the verge of saying something, but won't say it. Well, that's the way Hanako always is, on the verge of saying something, but never quite doing it. As I look intently into her eyes, I realize something. Everyone has their own thoughts, things they want to say, but their own worldview, but I can't work out what Hanako wants to say, and I can't work out what she's thinking. I never have been able to. It's frustrating. It feels like I don't know her at all, despite all the time we've spent together. Zao? It's only now that I find myself blushing. I've been looking directly into Hanako's eyes from such a short distance with absolutely no regard for her, and she's been looking into mine without shirking away. I quickly look away while covering my face with my hand, and Hanako does just the same. Another awkward silence reigns. I hate these. At first I accept them as just being a fact of life around Hanako, but now all they feel like is an affirmation of how little we're able to communicate. Some anger makes its way into the complex mixture of emotions I'm experiencing right now. I want to bridge the gap between us. Friends shouldn't have to tiptoe around each other like this. Speak before I can argue myself out what I'm going to do. My scarring isn't as bad as Hanako's, and I can't possibly compare my life to hers, but I want to show her that she's not alone. Doing this in such a blunt manner might be the only way to get my point across. Hanako, I want to show you something. Take a deep breath and prepare myself. This could backfire badly. Yep, I know what you're going to do, and it could most certainly backfire badly. But I feel as if we've come close enough for this to be okay. I'm not going to strip naked or anything weird. I'm just going to take off my shirt. Yep. Hanako's eyes grow the size of saucers. Her face is an amusing mixture of curiosity and nervousness as she stands. Helps take the edge off my own nervousness at doing this in front of another person. Slowly, with my entire body feeling tense, I unknot my tie and begin to loose the first of the buttons, and trying to mentally block out Hanako and make this easier, but it's not really working. As I work my way down, I expect to hear some form of protest from her. She remains silent, though, which just makes this feel even stranger. With the last of my shirt unbuttoned, I take a breath and look at her. Hanuko's gaze is fixed on my scarring as expected, and once I nod to say it's okay, she steps forward and tentatively places her hand on the vertical line running down my chest. The scarring on her hand, a pattern of damaged skin across the surface, contrasts with the single uniform line that makes up mine. Her hand isn't trembling at all, unlike what I predicted. This is the scar from the surgery that followed my heart attack. The surgeons had to cut open my chest and operate on my heart. I never knew. Hanuko's words are calmer and softer than usual. The soft feeling of her fingers moving from my scar to my breast make me hesitate a little before continuing on. You're the first person to see this since I left the hospital. But why are you showing this to me? I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this, that I could accept my past and move on. I want to show that to you as well. She nods. From her reaction, she seems to know how difficult this is for me. More than anything, this scar represents a visible reminder of my condition, a reminder that I'm not normal anymore. That's something that until now I had tried my hardest to ignore. As the minutes tick by, Hanuko's gaze lingers. Her eyes look less focused on my scarring than before. The situation feels a bit different than it previously did and makes me feel slightly uncomfortable. Her hand retreats, and I draw my shirt close and begin to button it up. Her blushing face suddenly returns to its typical sense and timid state as she looks away. The room is completely silent as I fix my shirt and tie, feeling put off after such an unexpectedly intimate moment. So I guess you're not the only one that's scarred. Hanako smiles a little at the joke, thankfully lightening the atmosphere a bit. Thank you, Zhao. I think I understand. I give a long sigh of relief. I really didn't know how she'd take it, but I'm glad everything seems to have worked out as I had hoped. Hanuko's smile only proves that further. I'm finding the path I want to follow now, and what Hanako needs to do is to find her own. It's something I can't help her with, and it's something that she needs to overcome her past in order to do. Hanako checks her watch. It's getting late by now. Yeah, I'd better get going. I'll be thankful for some sleep. It's been a long day after all. Good night, Hanako. Good night. I make my way out of her room and into the hallway, remaining silent as I do so. I think both of us have gone through a few emotions today. The heat of the summertime sun beats down my sweating brow. Dabbing with a handkerchief doesn't help too much in making me any more comfortable. Giving up on the idea of getting more done today, I stop and lean against one of the overpass fences, resting my bag on the ground. The stores in the town below Yamaku are well stocked and offer enough variety for me to get by, but at least an occasional shopping trip to the city is something that can't really be avoided. I've been here a few times now. The city's layout is getting more familiar, and the nostalgia from its atmosphere is beginning to wear off. I realize I begin to wheeze. I sound like an old man that's overexerted himself, and having to connect that to the fact that I'm the source is a bit disturbing. I put a hand on my chest and concentrate for a bit to make sure I haven't gone far enough to cause any further problems. Thankfully, my heart is acting normally. There's no dull pain. The beating is regular, albeit fast-paced, as I recover from overdoing things in this kind of heat. I hate my body. It's frustrating to be held back, even more to be held back by a fear of my life being ended, when doing something as simple as walking around the city for a while. As I ponder on my health, I feel my pocket vibrating. By the time my phone's begun to ring, my hand is already fishing for it. A glance at the screen shows a caller I don't recognize. Strange. Shrugging, I press the button to answer the call and bring the phone to my ear. Hello, is Nakai speaking. The sound of a couple of short breaths can be heard, but no actual speech is forthcoming. Hello? Hizao? It's Hanako. Her voice is really easy to place, even if I've never heard it over a phone before. Hanako, sorry, I wasn't expecting you to call. What's up? If you're not busy, I wonder if you would like to meet up? Yes, she sounds really wound up about this. I can hear muffled voices in the background, and it's about time for afternoon tea, so I guess she'll want me to meet her at the Shanghai or something. That sounds fine. Are you at the Shanghai? I'm in the city. Hanako's here? Alone? That's a surprise. It's little wonder she's like this if she's surrounded by people entirely by herself. Well, that works out well. I'm just wandering around there now. Where are you? Hanako manages to stammer the street name, address, and some basic directions to where she is. Luckily, it's not too far, so I agree to see her soon before hanging up. I look up to the sky. The summer heat is beating down. This is the first time Hanako has asked for us to do something together beyond a simple board game, and the first time, at least since I've known her, that she's come to the city by herself. Maybe this means that Lily was right. By the time I manage to stagger up to the cafe where Hanako is, I've started to wheeze again. I'm sweating so much that I feel like a melting popsicle and can barely hold the bag in my hand. I need to sit down badly. Tables outside are all occupied by busily chatting couples and girls gossiping between themselves. The contrast between the different age groups and fashions of the people here and the people from town near Yamaku is striking. I scan over the people sitting at the tables, but I can't see Hanako. She did say she was sitting outside, so I must be missing her. Not difficult, given how small she usually tries to make her presence. I look around again, more slowly this time, taking particular care to see if I can find Hanako's hat. It's pretty distinctive, and I'd be very surprised if she wasn't wearing it. There she is. Sure enough, her head is kept low, and the table she's sitting at is right beside the building in an inconspicuous corner. I walk up to where she is and make sure I have her attention before I said, lest I give her a scare. She notices me, gives a small wave as I arrive at her table. Are you feeling well? I try my best to laugh it off, but doing so just makes me more out of breath. Not very fit these days, don't mind me. Hanako nods, but still looks a bit put off. Whoops. Now I can get a good look at her face. Something about her seems a bit different. I'm not sure if my eyes are playing tricks on me, but she looks kind of nice. Her eyes move upward to look at me before quickly flicking down again. I begin to think this is going to be a rather quiet meeting, but a waitress thankfully arrives and sets a cup of tea in front of Hanako. Hanako almost automatically turns slightly away and lowers the side of her head. It's an amazingly practiced motion, does a good job of its intended purpose, hiding her scars from someone who's leaning in close. Her right arm is still laying on the table, though, with the scarring on the back of her hand quite visible. It catches the waitress's eye, and I move to quickly distract her. Excuse me, may I place an order? The waitress nods and gives me a couple of seconds to look at the menu. Could I have a mango smoothie, please? She gives a nod before almost enthusiastically bouncing inside. Everything is so different in the city in more ways than one. Hanako looks back up towards me and adjusts her hat a little. If she noticed the waitress staring at her scars, she doesn't show it. Not coffee? I think I'd die in this heat if I had something like coffee right now. Resting my head on my hand, I looked to my quiet companion. She seems taken aback, a very unexpected reaction to my lame joke. An unwelcome emotion bubbles up inside me as I realize her reason why. Unlike most in Yamaku, indeed unlike anyone there that I'm aware of, my condition goes beyond limiting the activities I can do. Or to be more precise, breaching those limits could have much more grave consequences. Thankfully, it's something that's very rarely come up since I've entered Yamaku. I thought it was so rare that Hanako and Lily might not think of it at all. It turns out I was wrong. Hanako silently drinks her tea while I wait for my drink, confirming that it's the right temperature with a small sip before she begins in earnest. I feel guilty for being the cause of an uncomfortable silence, since in the past I've been the kind of hard on Hanako for those. Eventually, the same waitress from before bounces up, handing me my drink. I gather change from my pocket and drop it into her waiting hand before she goes off to attend to another customer. My eyes linger on her as she walks away. Do you think that she looks pretty? Hanako is following my gaze, her eyes taking in the waitress that served us. I can feel my blood slowly going to my cheeks as I rest my smoothie back on the table. Nah, I can't really say I'm into that look. She just looked a lot like an old friend I knew before my heart attack. Did you have many friends? I had a few at my previous school, though I wouldn't say a lot. The four of us just hung around together after school and stuff. Do you still talk to them? I shake my head. No, we gradually lost contact while I was stuck in the hospital. You're not saddened by that, or angry? Hanako looks genuinely surprised. I guess it's the right reaction. Well, life did move on for them while I was stuck in the ward. I was pretty sore about it at the time, but now it's just a bunch of nice memories. Besides, once I came to Yamaku, I found new friends as well. It's quite a whitewash of what my feelings were back then, when I went through some dark times during my stay at the hospital, and I really am glad that Hanako and Lily were around to help me after I left it. Hanako blushes as we both get down to enjoying our drinks. She seems to have calmed down since I arrived, and I've started to feel a little better now that I've had the chance to rest a bit, so this is getting to be a nice outing already. Even if she's calmer than before, though, she's still fidgeting a bit. She runs her hand down one of her bangs as I try to think of something to say. Oh, that's right, I was going to ask. Hanako tilts her head quizzically. I didn't know you had a mobile phone. How'd you get my number? Lily gave it to me. I should have guessed. You know, you could have just asked. I'd have given it to you. Want to exchange email addresses? Hanako nods, setting down her drink and fishing out her phone from her pocket as I do the same. It's surprisingly the same model as mine, pink though. Nice phone. She looks at me with a curious expression before noticing my phone and giggling. It's one of the very few times I've seen Hanako let her guard down enough to do such a thing. I didn't pick it out myself, though. Oh? It was a present from Lily. I never needed a phone and I couldn't afford one. She bought me one for Christmas, though, saying that we could use it to keep in touch. They see each other basically every day anyway, both in and out of school. Then again, Lily does have her class representative duties and other friends that she talks with. It'd probably help for situations like this, too, when she's gone away for a while. Lily's a very special person to you, isn't she? She is. I love her very much. Hanako looks down and smiles as she thinks of her. None of my friendships were as deep as theirs, and I have to admit to myself I'm a little jealous of their relationship. We tell each other our email addresses and thumb them into our respective phones, and I get Hanako's number from earlier and put it into my contacts list. Done. That makes 3 now. 3. Lily, Akila, and you. Akila. She's an interesting person, isn't she? She is. She's also really nice, though. Her suit makes her look a bit cool. I'm a little surprised you know each other well, with her job taking up so much of her time. Hanako looks down a little and takes another sip of her drink. If I wasn't looking intently at her face, I'd miss the small smile perched on it. I guess when she knows so few people, those she knows must mean a lot to her. How many do you have? Me? About 9 or 10. I hesitate to go into them for fear of rubbing the fact that Hanako doesn't have parents or apparently even close relatives. 2 of those are Shizune and Misha, too, which is another can of worms. I imagine that Lily would have more than both of us put together, probably. Hanako gives a childish giggle, and I can't help but smiling. It's a good feeling that she's gotten this comfortable around me at times like this. I feel like I'm getting closer to talking to her true self. Do you mind if I ask something I've been wondering? Hanako shakes her head as she takes the last sip of tea, finishing it off. Drink time. Oh, it's so hot here. You don't seem very jealous of Lily having lots of friends. Don't you want to make some more friends yourself or get to know some of hers? I'm not jealous. I don't like people, so I don't mind not having many friends. That's really not the answer I was expecting. She doesn't look fearful or sad as she says this, but rather quite serious. Hi. Hanako rubs her arm awkwardly, having taken my quietness as a reason to continue. I'm not really sure what I should say, so I end up simply giving her my attention and silence. In middle school, I got bullied a lot. I was called names, got excluded from work groups and sports teams. There were worse things, too. And that's what made you not like other people? She shakes her head. That was elementary school. I feel bad for bringing this up now. Adults have enough problems dealing with Hanako's scarring. Children would be all the worse. I'd assumed that the way she tried to make her presence not felt was just to avoid people staring at her, or because she was afraid of them, certainly not because she genuinely didn't want to interact with them in the first place as well. I noticed the condensation from my neglected smoothie forming a little puddle around the bottom of the cup, so I take the opportunity to finish it off. As I drink, she begins to fiddle with her phone. Looks like she's remembered the people around her again and begun to tense up. It isn't exactly a cheap phone. I had to save up for quite a while to afford one when I got mine. If Lily went to a private school, she probably wouldn't have too much trouble getting one for a present, though. Watching her fiddle with it gives me an idea. Hey, Hanako, wait for me. I'll be right back. I put the now empty cup down, slip my phone into my pocket, and begin to move off, carefully stepping around the bag I'd placed beside my feet. Thankfully, sitting around while talking to Hanako has helped me feel a lot better than before. Oh, wait, where are you going? Just stay here. I'll be back in a bit. As much as I'd have liked to jog back, I know full well that I couldn't. I end up walking back to the cafe, a little blue bag in my right hand. Hanako notices me quickly, looking about as confused as she did when I left. I deposit the diminutive bag in front of her and sit back down. Is this? It's for you. You can open it. But go on. She looks very unsure about it, but eventually gives in, slowly opens the bag and picks the contents out. A silver chain phone strap dangles from her fingers, ending in a delicate flower. It isn't exactly a masterwork of jewelry, but it's about as much as I could afford. Hanako's eyes light up when she looks at it. It's the kind of reaction I was hoping for. The summer's sunlight glints off the silver as it twists to and fro a little. It's not too ostentatious, but still looks a little charming. I think it suits her well. Hanako lowers the phone strapped to the table and looks at me once more. But it's not Christmas or my birthday. It's fine, don't worry about it. I just thought it'd be nice to have something to decorate your phone with. I don't have anything to give you. I told you, it's fine. Friends can give each other things like this sometimes, right? Friends. Hanako lowers her face so much I can't see her expression. She eventually nods before taking her phone and fiddling with the strap to attach it properly. She looks at me and smiles as she holds up her phone, now adorned with a little flower. Thank you, Hisao. Her smile proves infectious. Out of the corner of my eye, I notice a couple getting up and leaving. That reminds me that the bus back to the town below Yamako will be coming soon. I guess I'd better be going if I want to catch the next bus back to town. You coming as well? Ah, yes. She hastily nods before carefully putting her phone back into her pockets and getting out of her chair. I do the same and pick up the bag I'd left beside me on the way out. We walk side by side as we make our way to the bus station, exchanging no words between us. Hanako's gaze is firmly locked ahead of her, though she looks very happy with herself. I'm not sure what I should say to her, but I'm also not sure that I need to say anything. The fact that Hanako is happy, and happy because of me, is enough to make the load on my arm feel light as a feather. Well, things seem to be going well. I still think that choice I made in the last part is gonna screw up. Like if I have to go back and change any choices, I feel like it'll be that one. Finally reaching the classroom after the usual walk from the dormitories, I step inside. My eyes immediately turn to the third seat from the left of the back row, Hanako's seat. It's empty, and after glancing around the classroom, it looks like she isn't here yet. The two girls from the newspaper club are here, in the two seats to the left of Hanako's, as she's named Misha, but that's about it. We exchange morning greetings before I take my seat. I have to admit, this is a bit of a relief. This gives me at least a few more minutes to think. Not that I haven't been doing so previously. Ever since our trip to town, Hanako's been on my mind. I still don't know what to make of my relationship to Hanako. I like her, I can admit that much to myself. I want to protect and shield her from the pain she feels. I really don't think my feelings are just those of friendship anymore. But that said, I feel like I don't even know her. If I made a move on her, how would she take it? Is she in an emotional state that allows her to make a reasonable decision about a relationship? How would she cope with anything that might happen afterwards? There's also the possibility that I'm just completely misinterpreting Hanako, not a difficult thing to do with someone whose social skills seem to be so underdeveloped. The sound of footsteps comes up to the door, making me perk up. And it ends up just being Miki. She barely acknowledges my existence when I accidentally make eye contact with her. I'm about to look away, but another person comes in not long after she takes her seat. I feel my eyes freeze as I see Hanako enter. This is an irrational reaction, but I have no idea how I should act or what I should say to her. For a moment, our eyes meet. And then, just as quickly, she looks away and moves to her seat without saying a single word. As is now usual for the period following classes, my face is buried deep in a book that I find thoroughly uninteresting. Studying is not something that comes naturally to me. I didn't study a lot before coming to Yamaku, and until now I've largely managed to coast through on talent alone. It's frustrating that I can't do that anymore. Judging by the faces of the other students in the library, I don't think I'm alone in my distaste for this. Misery loves company, I suppose. I decide to spend lunchtime with Hanako since we haven't had lunch together for a while now. I may as well have spent the time studying, though. Aside from pathetically small snippets of small talk, there was barely a word said between us. She keep doing this to me. I just want to protect her, to be there for her, but every time I feel like we're coming closer, we end up further away. Are you busy? Hanako. My head whips around in surprise, causing her to retreat in fright. That was bad time. If I hadn't been thinking about her at that very moment, I probably wouldn't have been so nearly startled. Oh, sorry, you just startled me. I find myself staring at her longer than I should, so I go back to the text lying on the table in front of me. I feel like I'm just staring at the words rather than actually reading. I get the feeling Hanako can notice this as well, so I sigh and close the book. What's up? I was just wondering what you were reading. She looks a little downcast after my reaction to seeing her. Giving up the prospect of getting any work done, I get up and return the book to its place on the nearby shelf. Just an English textbook. How's it help? It helped me realize that I don't like English, yeah. Hanako gives a small giggle. I may muse on the strange state of our friendship, but I do know that such little gestures are things I wouldn't see if were I not at least some distance closer to her than when we first met. I look at her for a moment, thinking about what I do and don't know about her. It's a slightly depressing topic. Is something wrong? I don't know. If I want to know more about her, maybe I should stop being so evasive about it. Oh, the music's going. Choice time? Nope. Talking with Lily as an equal, rather than being constantly in fear of causing her to become upset, worked fine, so I should try a straightforward approach with Hanako as well. Hey Hanako, do you mind if I ask a question? I don't mind. I want to know what your life was like, your life before coming to Yamaku. She hesitates. I briefly consider backing off, but she seems to be taking the question quite seriously. I sit and watch her, silently letting her take her time. She's not making eye contact with me, and looks almost as if she's arguing with herself into letting herself open up to me more. Her answer finally comes in a stiff, almost reluctant nod. She looks far more tense than she did before I'd asked. Okay, but in return you have to tell me about your life as well. I nod and follow her as she begins to walk out of the library so we can talk. By now most of the students have already left the main building, so apart from a few people hovering around the club rooms, the hallways are largely empty. I guess we'll start with coming to Yamaku. Let's see, I was in the hospital when my parents first told me about Yamaku Academy. The doctor told me I shouldn't go to my old school anymore. My parents agreed and persuaded me to apply for Yamaku, even though it would mean living away from them for the first time. It must have been hard for you. Yeah, well, I have to admit it was. My parents both work long hours and full-time, so having to live reasonably independently wasn't anything new to me. It was the fact that I was going to a school for disabled students that hit hardest, I think. And you? A small group of chatting girls passes us as we near the stairs, with Hanako pressing herself tightly to my side until we reach the ground floor. She doesn't usually come this close while just walking into school, so I must have left a little put off. The staff at the orphanage offered me some options on what I could do. Middle school hadn't been good, so I thought that Yamaku might be better. It was isolated, and I thought it might be easier to get by here with most of the others being disabled. It's pretty ironic that the reasons Hanako looked forward to Yamaku are the exact reasons I hated the idea. To me, it felt like I was being shunted somewhere away from society and everyone I knew. To Hanako, that was probably an inviting prospect. What was life like at the orphanage? It was okay. The staff over there were nice, and they took care of us. The children there didn't talk to me much, but I didn't really want to talk with them either, so I didn't mind. The orphanage had a little library, so I started to read to pass the time. The staff didn't mind it because it made me easier to handle than many of the other children. You didn't make any friends there? No, I think my life was on hold during that time. I knew that, but I didn't mind. To think her life was on hold for all that time, though, depending on when the fire happened, that was a huge chunk of her life. No parents, no friends, apparently no relatives. We walked through the door into the courtyard. I expect to need to avert my eyes from the sun, but by now it's well into sunset. Hanako's eyes keep flicking to me, so I look away from her for a bit. What was it like in the hospital? I quickly clear my thoughts and try to refocus them. I hesitate for a bit, but I know I have to tell her. We're close enough for her to feel comfortable telling me this, so it's only fair that I reciprocate. It was okay at times, but at others it was pretty bad. At the beginning, everyone sent their sympathies and came to visit often. It was just like breaking an arm or something. Meeting all my friends is one of the good times. Iwanako came in often as well, more often than anyone else. But there were bad times too. When my friends slowly stopped visiting, I began to realize how grave my situation was. It reminded me that this wasn't just a broken limb, but that I was now a different person than before. Even the times Iwanako would spend with me became torturous. By the end we were reduced to silence, whereas before she'd been talking constantly. But that's how Iwanako always was. She may have been a fragile person, but she would talk constantly and try to hide that fact. Not about anything in particular, just talk. I think the three lowest points would have been when my parents told me I wouldn't be going to my old school anymore, my birthday passing while in the hospital, and when Iwanako left her last time. We leave the school buildings behind us as we begin to follow the main path through the gardens. There may have been the odd bystander in the school buildings, but outside we're practically alone. What was your middle school like? I liked it, and I grew up in a really metropolitan area, and the middle school was nearby, so it was pretty crowded. I didn't mind it, mostly because I'm used to being in crowds and around lots of other people. I got good marks, and I played soccer with my friends. I spent a fair bit of time hanging out with them after school as well. I did get teased a bit over my hair, though. Your hair? I'd grimace a little as I put my hand over my hair to cover it. I'd keep getting tufts and strands that refused to flatten or stay where I wanted them, and my mother wouldn't let me just get my hair shaved. It had a habit of popping out no matter how much I tried to brush it down. It still does a little. I was worried I'd get that reply. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I give a mild laugh and wave it off. It's fine, I know it still does. It feels strange to have someone act so interested in my past. If it were anyone else, I'd think they would just act impolite, but that's something I really don't think Hanako would do. Or if she did, she'd do it so badly it would be obvious. There are a number of girls in the common room on the ground floor, and Hanako presses herself against my side once more as we pass them. I expect her to break off, but instead she continues to cling on to me as we walk towards the stairway. Something about the way she's holding on to me feels different from the usual. I'm left deep in thought as we walk up the stairs and down the hallway. It's only when we stop that I look up and realize that I've been following her without question. Why did we come to your dormitory room? She looks straight at the door without much of a glance in my direction. Monica? She moves to answer, but stops herself. Instead, she silently breaks from my side, opens her door, and steps inside. I look up and down the hallway, a bit lost as to exactly what I should do. Shrugging, I decide to follow her since I don't have any reason to do otherwise. Hanako stands in the middle of the room and looks straight at me. It's unnerving when she does this. It's such an unusual action for her. I open my mouth to speak, but she preempts me. Could you close and lock the door? Hanako's hand reaches for her chest, grabbing her blouse at her heart. I turn and lock the door shut, then freeze. The atmosphere is beginning to feel quite strange. This feeling is only made more profound when I hear the curtains being pulled behind me. It's gonna be night soon. We're a guy and a girl in a bedroom. She's closing the curtains and I'm shutting and locking the door. She can't really have that in mind, can she? I gulp and turn around very, very slowly. Hanako's in the center of the room, but she hasn't turned back to face me. You told me about your past, so I'll have to tell you mine. She takes a deep, shuddering breath and pauses for a number of seconds. Her hands move to her ribbon and begin to tug, all but confirming my thoughts. Hanako? Please don't say anything. I obediently stay hushed as she slips off her ribbon and continues to unbutton her blouse before working the clip of her on her bra. Process is slow. Perhaps it just feels slow because of what she's doing, but I'm not sure. Frozen to the spot, all I can do is watch as Hanako, hands trembling, unclips her skirt and lets it drop to the ground. Finally, she takes her blouse in her hands and draws it off, her bra falling from her shoulders, and so Hanako stands in the middle of the room, all but bared save for her stockings and underwear. This is me, all of me. My eyes are... Nice camera angle, game. My eyes are immediately drawn to the scarring on her back. The skin of her right side is of a similar texture to that of her face, but it's also stretched taut and covered in a much larger area. The scarring is by far the worst in the shoulder, buttock, and thigh. Just as my heart attack redefined my life, this is the event that redefined Hanako's. If I'd seen this when I first met her, I'd have been shocked, not only at the sight, but also at the idea that something like this was survivable. After having had time to get used to the idea, and after seeing the scars on her face, hands, and collar, my reaction was more measured. My reaction right now is not due to her scarring, but her body. The fire happened when I was 8 years old. It was night, and we were sleeping when it started. Hanako's voice trembles, the shaking of her blouse giving away the fact that her hands are doing just the same. I curled up into a ball when the fire swept over me. My mother tried to shield me. That's the only reason I lived. Hanako's eyes begin to moisten, her voice cracking under the combined pressure of exposing herself to me like this and reliving those painful memories from so long ago. I want to say something, anything, to make her feel better. I can't, though. I feel completely useless when faced with a situation like this. She's forcing herself to come so close, yet it's at times like this I feel most distant to her. I'm sorry for making you see this. No, it's okay. You look pretty cool. There's no point in denying the obvious. I think what I should say now, and what Hanako wants me to say now, is the truth, what I genuinely, honestly believe. It doesn't matter. You're a wonderful person, Hanako. Your body doesn't change that. She looks at me for a long time, her breathing uneven as she tries to remain steady amidst the emotions we're both feeling. It feels less like she's looking at me than she's looking through me. I slowly walk towards her and gently place my hands on her shoulders as she lets go of her blouse. She gasps a little, not in fright, but in simple startlement. I like this music, by the way. Being so close to her causes my mind to become a jumble of feelings. The scarring on her shoulder, plain to see and leather-like to the touch, conflicts strangely with her otherwise soft skin and silky dark hair. Hanako is a girl with all that entails. She's taller than usual for a woman, but still has curves in all the right places. The nape of her neck, just visible thanks to her hair slung over her shoulders, is alluring. I know that I'm not pretty like Lily. I just wanted you to see me, the real me. I've already seen the real you, though. You don't need to take off your clothes for that. Game, please. Her lips are open just a little. She lets out a sharp breath as, without thinking, I breathlessly lean forward and press my lips to hers. This lasts only a fleeting moment before our faces part, and breathing quick and nervous, the fleeting feeling of Hanako's mouth lingers. Let's put this... There, it's covered. The feeling of Hanako's mouth lingers, and her eyes remain locked to mine. Damn it, game. Trembling a little myself, I remove my time again undoing the buttons of my shirt. Hanako remains... Wait a minute, game. What are you doing? What are you doing? Where's options? What's this? What's this, game? Game, what's this? Look, you see that check mark there? Does this mean nothing to you anymore? Alright, well... Mouse. There. Hanako remains standing where she is, looking at the ground in front of her rather than watching me undress. On the one hand, I'm thankful for that. I've always been somewhat self-conscious of my body, but my scarring has made quite a lot worse. On the other, though, this atmosphere feels very strange. She's not very scarred in the front. My shirt falls to the floor in a heap, as untidy and crumpled as Hanako's blouse and skirt. Hanako's entire body visibly flinches at the sound of the zipper of my trousers being pulled down. My trousers join my shirt as on Hanako's floor next to the bed, as do my socks. In short measure, I hesitate before taking off my boxers and end up leaving them on. They represent one last hurdle I don't think I can overcome quite yet. Sheer embarrassment stops me, along with not wanting Hanako getting even more worked up. My unease about the situation has also left me needing my own stimulation. Hanako? She gives a nod without so much as glancing at me and makes her way to the bed as I do. She walks as if her legs are wooden sticks. I found it amusing if I weren't doing exactly the same thing. I take the initiative of turning around and sitting on the side of the bed. I look to her face to invite her to take a seat either next to me or in front of me, but ends up awkwardly looking down to stop myself from staring at her body. Thank you, game. At least you have. Is that a shrimp? Okay. At least you have some tact. I mean, you didn't earlier, and I hope YouTube doesn't go crazy over that. I'm not a very popular Let's Player, I guess you'd call me, but then after a couple seconds it ends, so that's good to see. Like, I'm not very popular, but I mean, not copyright, but whatever the heck YouTube does to get rid of this stuff might hit me with this, and if it does, I'm not sure what I'll do, actually. I guess I'll just, I can deal with that, actually. Yeah, I would just have to go back and then, like, remove that segment. It would kind of lose some of its charm. Like, I could still show them. I'm rambling, let's go. After a couple of seconds it ends. The sound of Hanako's breathing on my own rings in my ears almost painfully loudly. Hanako holds an arm over her face, her mouth open and gulping in air. As I hold myself over her, suddenly my arms almost give way and my vision distorts as if someone's grabbed it and pulled sideways. I let myself fall sideways onto the bed beside the panting Hanako, for fear of falling onto her instead. We both lie beside each other, naked and pressed against one another to fit in on a bed made for a single person. My eyes try to focus on the ceiling, and to not much success. Pulling a blanket over us to stave off the cold is all I can do. The only sound in the room is that of our breathing. The sweat that had accumulated on my body feels uncomfortable. We're both physically and emotionally exhausted and a complete mess all over. Oh. My vision slowly begins to return to normal as I continue to stare at the ceiling, but my limbs still feel like jelly. I try to concentrate on my chest and find its beat irregular and mildly painful. This is a dangerous time. I have to think this through and not panic, lest I make my situation any worse. With a huge effort, I take control of my erratic breathing, forcing myself to make long, deep breaths. I count half a dozen before I start to feel physically calm again, and press my hand to my chest to assure myself. My heart beats back to normal. I'm okay. I turn my face towards Hanako, who's already looking at me. Her expression looks pretty dazed, but underneath that, there's definitely a look of concern. She realized what happened. I'm okay. Everything's back to normal. I find myself barely able to get the words out between breaths. I don't think sex would tire a normal body out this much, so I have to no doubt my condition's at least partially at fault. Why did my body have to do this right now? All thoughts in my heart, though, are pushed aside as I see the wide smile forming on Hanako's face. As always, I smile back without another thought. Hanako's smile has always been infectious in its almost childlike sweetness and earnesty, something that sets her apart from anyone else I know. Right now, we don't need words. Everything we want to communicate to each other, we can share just fine without them. God damn it, game. YouTube better not pull this because of that. I forgot to mute my mic when I took my drink because I'm kind of upset about that. Are we still in her room? Yes. Well, we're gonna end here. God damn it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye.